For thousands of years, there was a technology that could alter physical reality, contact non-human intelligence, and completely rewrite history itself. Is it real? If not, then why are the elites into it? Welcome to Mind Unveiled.
I remember.
Okay guys, it's about to get weird. And I mean, history is weird. Like, why does the Vatican have the largest collection of grimoires? Why did Isaac Newton spend more time on alchemy than physics? And why was every founding father in a secret society performing bizarre rituals? Today, we're talking about occult history, the type of stuff they don't really teach you in school. Like, did the ancients have some type of mystical power that was lost after a cataclysm? Or how about all that weird witchcraft stuff throughout the medieval ages? Were they just tripping on moldy bread? And what about these secret societies? Did they get together and decide to fabricate our history? A lot of strange stuff, but at the core, do we have the ability to alter physical reality with our mind? Alright, if you're thinking what the hell is this guy talking about? Perfect. I'm talking about an ancient lost art form, an ancient technology that was used to recode reality. Basically, I'm trying to get you to imagine a reality in which magic is actually real. And no, I'm not talking about stage magic like making the Statue of Liberty disappear or levitating in the hood. And no, I'm not talking about fantasy Disney magic. We're talking about real magic, with a K. See, if we take mainstream history as accurate, then magic almost has to be real. Because if it isn't real, then we have some major problems. Throughout the medieval ages and even the early Renaissance, the greatest thinkers accepted magic as a very real phenomenon. There are many definitions of magic, but at its core, it's a base principle of our reality. It's the power to control your destiny, to think a thought and to manifest it into reality. It is the process from mind to matter.
So you're saying if I visualize myself in a red sports car, it will just happen? It doesn't seem to be working.
Well, yeah, that's because you're trapped in there. It's not in your sphere of influence. Try that again when you're in a lucid dream. The manifestation will be immediate. You see, in order to explore occult history, we must understand what magic is and distinguish it from all its counterfeit variations. Magic's not only real, but the history of magic goes back to the origin of humanity. Magic, at its core, is mysticism, an alteration of consciousness in order to achieve a certain result. And most of the people in the modern day think this is woo-woo or new age or just a bunch of BS, but most of this comes from our modern belief system. We're taught a cosmology of randomness, a nihilist ideology which directly affects not only our view of what's possible, but directly inhibits our magical power.
So you're saying I can't do magic because I don't believe hard enough?
No, it's deeper than that. The ancient mystery schools understood something that we've completely forgotten. Magic isn't separate from reality. It is reality. It's the foundation. I'm talking about ancient mystery schools being the foundation for religions, for science, for our entire understanding of consciousness, the actual operating system of existence. For thousands of years, in Egypt, Greece, Persia, they all had mystery schools. And what they taught wasn't religion as we understand it today. They were spiritual technologies. Ancient historians like Herodotus, Plutarch, Iamblichus described the Great Pyramid not as a tomb, but as an initiatory temple. Initiates would undergo symbolic death and resurrection. They would literally exit their body, travel through different realms, and come back transformed. It's the same thing with the Eleusinian mysteries in Greece. Initiates would drink a sacred mixture and experience what we'd call today a near-death experience. They'd encounter divine beings, receive knowledge, and return back from the dead.
Oh, so they were tripping on psychedelics.
Except everyone that went through it described the same entities, the same realms, the same knowledge structure. That's not random hallucinations. And these weren't just New Age spiritual exercises. The mystery schools taught that reality itself is conscious, that mind came before matter, and that through altering your consciousness, you could interact with the fundamental layer of existence. And look, the magical claims from ancient sources are absolutely wild. Most of you know of one magical ability, astral projection, the ability to exit your physical body and travel to other locations or even other dimensions. The Egyptians called it the body of light, and they had entire rituals dedicated to this. Oracles who could see the future, not just vague predictions, these were specific, detailed information about events that hadn't happened yet. Kings and emperors would travel thousands of miles to consult them. Alexander the Great trekked 300 miles across the Sahara Desert to the Oracle of Siwa. The priest greeted him as the Son of God before he even spoke, and told him he would conquer the world and he'd never be defeated. And apparently he did. And this is weird. So right after this, he changes his whole look, declares himself to be God, and then they have all these depictions of the horns of Alexander, almost as if they merged him with some pan-iconography. Oh, and get this. In the Quran, he's known as the Horned One, and it literally says he was the one who built the Great Wall of China to keep Gog and Magog out of civilized lands. It also says that the wall was built through the help of jinn, just like the Temple of Solomon. So across multiple cultures from all around the world, there's this common pattern of using magic or supernatural entities for the creation of different structures. The most famous example being Solomon and his brass vessel. He summoned and commanded demons to build his temple. He even had this special worm called the shamir that apparently could eat stone. Was this some type of technology to melt or disintegrate stone? But it's more than that. This shamir was used to engrave the stones of the priestly breastplate of the high priest of the Hebrews. So when you look at these perfect laser-cut hieroglyphs, it really makes you wonder, what is this legend referring to? Is it some type of lost ancient technology? History is filled with these strange magical technologies, and you've heard of many of them. For example, the Ark of the Covenant. Typically described as a device for communicating with God, it was rumored to make people sick and even cause blindness to those who look at it. But throughout history, this device is essentially a reset device. It literally levels cities.
I thought the Ark was just a Bible story. There's no evidence it actually did anything.
Well, what about the walls of Jericho? Were they just marching around with trumpets and the walls fell? Or was it the Ark? When the Philistines captured it, it literally caused plagues and cataclysm. A device that caused devastation wherever it went. Of course, it has to say in 1 Samuel that the Ark's power wasn't a magical charm, but actually, it was just God's pure essence. Right. I don't know, sounds like a reset device to me.
Wait, but isn't magic just demonic stuff?
Well, that's typically what most Christians automatically conclude. But let's talk about what Christians do every single day. Prayer. You're using intention and focused consciousness to manifest outcomes. That's magic. Here's the thing. Magic can have different power sources. You can channel energy from yourself, from nature, from cosmic forces, from entities, or from what people call God. The mechanism is the same. Focused intention, ritual structure, belief. The power source is what changes. Christians are doing magic. They're just sourcing it through their God, and even then, I think we can all agree it is easy to abuse the power of prayer, as I'm sure many of you have seen. People praying in situations where really they shouldn't be bothering the God of the universe with. But that's the thing, prayer is really a form of mental magic. And what about baptism? A nature initiation ritual? Crosses used as talismans. Wearing a cross for protection is a form of magic. What about communion? Now I understand you can present this in different ways, but let's just be real. You're literally eating wine and bread in order to perform a symbolic reenactment of eating Jesus. This is archaic, bizarre, and most importantly, occult. These are literal magical rituals. They just don't call it that. Now I want to be clear that I'm not condemning Christianity. I just see it for what it is. It's a magical occult book. Holy water that repels demons, saints' relics that heal the sick, pieces of the true cross. The Shroud of Turin is basically an ancient magical photograph. Magical objects with supernatural powers. The Catholic Church has entire departments cataloging miracles. And these are just a few examples. We can discuss all the occult and alchemical references in the Bible in another video. They were also using magic with architecture. Structures built with stones weighing hundreds of tons, placed with precision we can barely match today. According to the legends, they sang to the stones, and they used sound, frequency, and consciousness to manipulate matter.
So they sang rocks into place? That sounds physically impossible.
Is it though? We know sound creates geometric patterns in matter. That's cymatics. We know that consciousness affects quantum behavior. That's the observer effect. What if the ancients understood how to scale that? And before you roll your eyes, let's talk about astrology. And yes, I get this as a meme now, and many guys today actually see it as a red flag of a girl super into astrology. I mean, I don't think that, but in a way, it's kind of true because most astrology on social media is kind of this basic, oversimplified, oh, which zodiac sign should I date? Which is kind of dumb. You shouldn't just judge someone based on what their sign is or even follow a daily horoscope religiously. But what is this whole concept of astrology, and what is the origin? Astrology comes from astrotheology, an ancient practice of worshipping the powers of the stars. The ancients would document the effects between different snapshots in time and the correlation between these heavenly bodies. Every ancient civilization had court astrologers, advisors to kings, and these weren't entertainers. Battles were planned around planetary alignments. Empires rose and fell based on these calculations. They were tracking celestial mechanics and correlating them with events on Earth for thousands of years. That's data collection on a multi-era scale.
Correlation isn't causation, though.
True, but what if consciousness and the cosmos are interconnected? As above, so below. What if we're not separate from reality observing it, but a part of a conscious system? You see, that's just one piece of a much larger picture. But here's where it gets strange. Many can't imagine this to be real today because, well, where's the proof? Why can't I make it work today? Well, you can, but there are more barriers and variables involved, such as the stage of our collective consciousness. But there's also the concept of different frequencies of reality throughout our history. In ancient Greece, they had the concept of a daemon. Not a demon, daemon, a guiding spirit. So apparently, the ancient Greeks could actually literally hear the voice of God in their heads. Socrates talked about his daemon constantly. It would talk to him, guide him, warn him if he was in danger. I guess this was just perfectly normal back then. People in the ancient world could communicate with what they called God, or the gods, almost freely. They would go to temples, perform rituals, and receive direct communication, voices, visions. That doesn't really happen today. They were receiving downloads of information. So think about it. What if this was so normalized back then that yes, even though they did talk about it, they didn't feel the need to prove it or anything? This was just common knowledge. This was their day-to-day life. But apparently, if none of this is true, then the only logical conclusion is that these people were just all insane. So they were just constantly tripping, but at the same time they were building the most magnificent architecture humanity has ever seen. It sounds insane to us today. But think about it. What if reality back then was different? What if the line between mind and matter was thin? Many of you know about Missing 411, where there are many cases of people deep in the woods, when all of a sudden, everything gets quiet, and people go through what is described as a portal. Basically, time slows down and they enter another dimension. And yes, that was a random tangent, but think about it. What if history is similar? Throughout different time periods, our entire reality fluctuates between different frequencies, and during these phases, magical and supernatural effects were more powerful. It's similar to the concept of performing rituals during a full moon. Why would you do that? Well, during different astrological timings, different snapshots of time or alignments of heavenly bodies, there are shifts in reality that enhances the effects of specific archetypal energies. That's just one part of this. Another aspect is just how our mind develops over time. What if reality used to be more dreamlike, more impressionable, more responsive to consciousness? And then, something changed. Reality solidified. The material world became more fixed. And all of a sudden, these voices stopped. This direct communication ended, and magic became harder to access. This is the secret history of the world. At some point on our timeline, magic stopped working. Or at least in the way it was described by the ancients, perhaps after a reset. This is when thought was trapped in form.
So you're saying magic worked better in the past because reality was more like a dream? And now it's hardened.
Exactly, which is why during the early Renaissance period, the alchemists were trying to rediscover these lost art forms. And those who succeeded, like Saint Germain, were shrouded in secrecy and royalty. So when we talk about cults, secret societies, what do they all have in common? A belief in magic, groups coming together to cause change through intention and secret rituals. Because magic isn't superstition, it's the foundation for how consciousness interacts with reality. The grimoires, the rituals, symbols, even religion are different spiritual technologies, ways to interface with the deeper layers of existence. The only distinction to be made is there are exoteric and esoteric versions of this tech, where the esoteric tech is done with full awareness of the operating system, which explains why during the early Renaissance, the alchemists were trying to rediscover these lost art forms. But it's almost as if they couldn't really quite figure it out, because after the cataclysm, the reset, people were trying to remember how to do magic. But they had some very strange ideas. I mean, they literally could create artificial humans, the homunculus.
What's that?
Don't worry about it. Throughout the medieval ages, ancient magical practices got revived, like divine letter magic and astrological rituals from Arabic grimoires like the Picatrix. But here's the thing. These texts were either corrupted over time or intentionally coded to keep outsiders from understanding the real knowledge. So what you get are these exaggerated, bizarre claims, like mandrake plants that scream when harvested and kill anyone who hears it. Necromancy using dead languages to summon spirits or even higher divine beings. And even royalty getting into blood sacrifice rituals for demonic pacts. Elizabeth Bathory being the most infamous example. They had the symbols, rituals, invocations, but the understanding of why it worked was gone. So they filled in the gaps with superstition and fear. And that's when the witch trials started. Tens of thousands executed. But the question is, why was the church so terrified of this knowledge? The Library of Alexandria, up to 400,000 scrolls containing ancient knowledge, burned. The Mayan codices, nearly all destroyed by Spanish conquistadors. We have 4 left. 4. Hermetic text, Gnostic Gospels, alchemical treatises. And what about the Cathars? Oh, that form of Christianity doesn't fit the narrative? Systematically hunted down and destroyed by the church. The Inquisition had hit list of forbidden books. So why does the Vatican have the largest collection of occult text on earth? Locked away, why? What's in there that's so dangerous that they can't let people see?
Maybe it's just superstition, and they're protecting people from wasting their time.
Maybe, but then why the death penalty? You don't execute thousands of people over nonsense. You execute people over power, over knowledge that threatens your control. Giordano Bruno, burned at the stake in 1600. For what, teaching Hermetic philosophy and claiming the universe was infinite? Why were they banning and burning alchemy books across Europe? In 1404, England made alchemy a felony, punishable by death. Why would you need to pass laws against transmuting metals if it's not real? So what happened to all that lost knowledge? It didn't disappear. It went underground into secret societies, and it became the foundation for literally everything we call modern. Here's what they don't teach you. Our entire modern world is a cult. They just rebranded it. Isaac Newton, father of physics, right? Well, he spent more time on alchemy than gravity. He wasn't trying to turn lead into gold for money. He was trying to understand the fundamental transformation of matter and consciousness. His physics work came from his alchemy research, and he saw the universe as alive, conscious. It's just that modern science stripped out the spiritual parts and kept the math. Chemistry comes from alchemy. Paracelsus, the father of toxicology, was an alchemist who was not only the main author known for discussing the homunculus, but he also believed in the philosopher's stone. Carl Jung, founder of analytical psychology, literally conducted seances, studied alchemy, wrote about synchronicity in the collective unconscious. He even wrote his own alchemy dream book called the Red Book, which is its own rabbit hole. His concepts of archetypes is just ripped from Hermetic philosophy. The shadow, the anima, individuation, these are repackaged mystery school teachings about the soul's journey. Modern medicine? It comes from the Hermetic healing arts. The caduceus is the symbol of medicine. It's Hermes' staff, the god of alchemy and magic. Our entire government structure comes from mystery school hierarchies, degrees of initiation, hidden knowledge at the top, and the masses kept in the dark. Sound familiar? Even architecture. Think about it. What were the earliest structures? Temples. Vitruvius described buildings as mirroring the human body, a mirror of the divine. Ancient temples were positioned on ley lines, oriented to the stars, built with specific acoustics and geometric proportions. These were consciousness amplifiers, metaphysical centers designed to transmute reality itself.
But that doesn't mean magic is real. Maybe they just had some good philosophical ideas mixed in with the nonsense.
Then explain why the people at the top, the power players, are still doing rituals, still using symbols, and still practicing in secret. But let's make a distinction. The ancient magical tradition, understanding reality's operating system, consciousness techniques, spiritual development, that's not evil, that's just how reality works. Magic is a tool, like fire. You can use it to cook food or heat your home, but you can also use it to burn down villages. The fire itself isn't good or evil, the intention is. But when elites use that knowledge for control, manipulation, harm, when they hoard the power and keep the masses ignorant, that's evil magic. Not because magic is evil, but because the people who are using it are evil. What we see today with secret societies at the highest levels of power, that's the abuse of the system. That's taking sacred knowledge and weaponizing it. So when people or Christians say magic is evil or the occult is demonic, they're confusing the tool with how it's being used. A scalpel in a surgeon's hand saves lives. The same scalpel in a murderer's hand kills. The scalpel isn't the problem.
So there's good magic and bad magic?
I'm saying there's magic and then there's what you do with it. And the people in power today, they're doing some very dark things with very real knowledge. Throughout history, one thing connects them all: a belief in occult knowledge and magical practice. But what are the implications of this if the Freemasons were responsible for the founding of America? Freemasonry is filled with bizarre rituals and ceremonies. Are we just going to ignore that? Even in mainstream history, George Washington invoked the great architect of the universe when performing the cornerstone ceremony for the Capitol. Why do you even need a cornerstone ritual? What's even crazier is the Masons did this for all sorts of buildings all throughout the different downtowns of America. You could say they are technically invoking spirits into these buildings. I mean, many of America's downtowns are considered to be haunted, so why does mainstream history ignore their obsession with the occult? Textbooks skip over the fact that the men who designed our government were practicing a later form of ceremonial magic.
Aren't they just a fancy social club that eats finger sandwiches?
Yeah, that's what most normies will say. And well, modern Freemasonry really is just a bunch of old people getting together and providing for the community, at least with the Blue Lodges. But keep in mind, Freemasonry today is not the same as it was before the early 1900s. If it's just a fraternity or social club, then why the secrecy? Why the oaths? Why the degrees of initiation where higher knowledge is revealed only to those who prove worthy? Why the use of occult symbols and iconography and rituals that are based entirely on esoteric Hebrew traditions? It's literally a derivation of early Hebrew and Christian cult societies, like the Knights Templar, Rosicrucians, and even other German sects. But the key here is that there's not just one secret society. A lot of people new to this subject or skeptics get lost in that. Different fraternities serve different purposes. Freemasonry is literally a secret society based on architecture. It's free masonry. Is it possible that these Freemasons found the architecture in America, where they then repurposed this infrastructure into what we now call downtowns or boomtowns? Cities with incredible Victorian architecture, supposedly built in impossibly short time frames in the late 19th century. Was there a reset in the early 1800s in America? The War of 1812? The Civil War? Literally all fought and designed by Freemasons. Brothers fighting brothers. This is where the occult meets history, as it is blatantly clear this occult fraternity set its purpose out on rewriting and or manipulating history in their favor. There is no denying that. And don't get me started on all the photo manipulation in our historical archives. This is a huge issue that still has not been addressed by mainstream historians. Not only were they purposefully manipulating historical photos, but there are several photographic collections from the late 1800s with empty streets and ghost towns. Not only in America, but across the world. And before you comment exposure times, as that's most people's immediate response for this phenomena, let me just respond now. There are no exposure streaks, and if there are, you can clearly see them. Exposure alone is not responsible for the empty streets. 2, we have to keep in mind that they did have low exposure time cameras since the 1860s. So really, the only possible explanation is that these photos were shot in the morning. But my response would be why? Why don't we have hundreds, if not thousands of photos of these cities between the 1860s and 1880s? Photographic technology was readily available. There's not one single battle of the Civil War. Not one. There is no excuse for that. We have portraits of the men near their tents, but none of the actual battles themselves? And to top it off, it is a fact that they were rearranging bodies in order to create fake photographs after the supposed battles had taken place. Think about it. If you could take high-resolution photographs like the panorama of San Francisco in 1860, then there's no excuse on why they don't have one single Civil War battle photo. This is 20 years after San Francisco's founding, by the way. This amount of infrastructure in that time period is impossible. Keep in mind, they did this all with horse and buggy. Yeah, right. So the idea is, what if they found these American cities and then repopulated them? Yes, that would mean American history is a lie. In the late 1800s, out of nowhere, major cities across America suddenly have massive neoclassical buildings, cathedrals, monuments. And the official story is that this was built in a few years by a civilization that supposedly traveled by horse and buggy. Buildings more advanced than what we construct today with modern technology. Secret societies set up in every major city right around this time. Freemason lodges, Oddfellows halls, fraternal orders, all establishing themselves during this early boomtown creation period. Then, after all this insane development, almost every single major city in America went through some great cataclysm of some kind. In most cases, it was these great fires. San Francisco destroyed in a 1906 earthquake, rebuilt in 3 years with massive classical buildings. Chicago, Great Fire of 1871, rebuilt almost overnight. These cities weren't built, they were found. And what about the World's Fairs? You really think they would just build all that for the public? Even if the narrative is true, which is complete BS that this is entirely made of wood and plaster.
But don't they have photographs?
Yeah, well, photographs can be faked. See, the thing that skeptics don't understand is that if this really is true, then there would 100% be an incentive to cover it up. And guess what? Did you know that almost every single world fair, not just in America, but also in Europe, were founded and set up by Freemasons? See, so history doesn't really like to mention that. I've read several World's Fairs books, and if Freemasons are mentioned at all, it's always a simple side note. They don't like to talk about how the World's Fairs were created by Freemasons to display the technical advancements of the current civilization after a reset, displaying what would be considered new technology to this new population. And then there's the orphans. Between 1854 and 1929, over 250,000 orphan children were transported across America on trains. But where did they all come from? Where were their parents? And guess what? The Oddfellows ran orphan homes in nearly every city. Massive institutions housing thousands of children. If there was a reset, and if populations disappeared, you would need to repopulate. This is the origin of the cabbage babies. How parents would tell their children in the past that the stork brought you. These weren't just cute stories, they were covering up where children actually came from. Why would an entire generation need a fairy tale about their origins? Check that out if you haven't seen it. But now it kind of gets into what's underneath these cities. Tunnels. Why are there underground tunnels in almost every single downtown? Extensive underground networks connecting buildings? The official story says prohibition or smuggling, but these tunnels are connected to orphan homes, Masonic lodges, and government buildings. It's a network for moving something, or someone without being seen. And here's where things get really dark. Because MKUltra was just a revival of early hallucinogenic magical mind control practices. None of this is new. It is the practice of creating trauma-based mind-controlled individuals for positions of power. You want to know why politicians all seem the same? Why they follow the script and they all contradict themselves? It's because they're not making decisions. They're programmed, created through systematic trauma, occult ritual abuse, probably even cloning programs, placed into positions of control. These people are NPCs. They're not free-thinking individuals. They're assets. They probably don't have an inner monologue. This gives us more insight behind the tradition of Bohemian Grove. I mean, it's a solid question. Why are the elites and world leaders performing mock sacrifices to a 40-foot owl? And what's up with the spirit cooking dinners with celebrity elites? Occult symbols are everywhere in our government buildings, currency, monuments. George Washington is literally depicted as a god. The people at the highest levels of power still practice rituals, and some of these are blatantly satanic or evil, but they're using the same occult knowledge from ancient mystery schools, but for control instead of enlightenment.
So then is magic real or not?
Does it matter? The people running the world think it is, and they've been using it for thousands of years while keeping everyone else in the dark. Whether you believe it or not, understanding this changes how you see everything. History, power, reality itself. So that's the occult history they don't teach you. From ancient magic to modern power structures. The knowledge never disappeared, it just went underground. Thanks for watching, and come on, what do you guys think of the new style? Not too bad, right?
You kind of look like an elf.
Right. I mean, I think you guys know what I was going for. I'll try some different outfits, but hey, at least it's better than it was 6 years ago. Yeah, let's not talk about that. Thanks for watching, and all we can hope is that our minds may be unveiled.